know, back then they would get like the wheat or the grain, and then they would grind it. And of course it was a strenuous job to grind it. If you want to make it very fine, you would have to spend a lot of time grinding that flour or the wheat. So his bread, the bread that he used to eat, was very coarse. So it had like bits of wheat in it. And you know they are very hard when you're eating that. So he used to eat such rough bread with oil. So one day a man visits him, and he tells him, Umar radiallahu anhu tells him, why don't you eat with me? And the man says, no. He saw that the food was too rough, so he says, no, inshallah, later on I'm going to the people of so-and-so, and I'll have some of their food, and the bread is finer, and the food is a little bit better than this. So then Umar radiallahu anhu shows him two things. He shows him, one, I know about good food, and two, I am capable of having good food. He tells him, do you see me not capable of ordering a young goat, look at the choice, a young goat, and then have its hair removed, just the hair, not the skin, and then let it roast over a gentle flame for many hours, so that it becomes soft like butter, and then order bread to be ground very nice and very fine, and then nice bread to be made from that, or order that the wheat be ground very finely, and then nice bread to be made from that, and then I would order them to remove the skin from the goat, and I would order them to take some raisins and put it in water so that it becomes red like the blood of a deer, and then I will eat from this and I will drink from that. So he's showing him that I have the ability to do that, and I also know very well about good gourmet and good food, but I choose to eat this. And look at this quote from Umar radiallahu anhu. He says, he used to say, woe to the one whose stomach takes him to the hellfire. What does that mean? He looked at it like that you can survive on anything. The believer can survive on any kind of food. It can be coarse bread and oil. So why would you ever let your stomach, because of something haram that you ate, take you to the hellfire while you could have lived on anything? So he used to say, radiallahu anhu, woe to the one whose stomach takes him to the hellfire. Now, the act of eating too much, it goes against many things in Islam. For one, it goes against the ayah that we mentioned. One of the early Muslims said that Allah had put all of medicine in half an ayah, and then he recited this ayah, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. He's saying that Allah put half of medicine, meaning your health and the key to being healthy, in just half an ayah, and then he recites this ayah. And eating too much goes also against the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, as we saw in the hadith, that one is to eat little or enough to sustain a person. And we find people, because they eat so much, they're not able to stand in Taraweeh, and they're not able to make sujood, and they're barely able to speak. And I know many people don't like to mention things like this, but we suffer from the burping. And we stand there, the person next to you burps, and you know what they had for dinner. And they burp, and you know that they had nothing but a plate of garlic for dinner. And this becomes a distraction to you. And we know very well, every one of us knows the hadith, that you're not supposed to eat anything with a foul odor like garlic or onion before going to the masjid. And people now can't focus on their salah because now they have to hold their breath until this passes over. So these are all problems that happen because of eating too much. Not to mention the fact that the person himself who overeats is not able to worship Allah as energetically had they not eaten too much. So we find if you eat too much, one of the things, you become sleepy. A lot of people, right after the all you can eat, they want to go straight to bed after the buffet. Why is that? There are many reasons behind it. One of them is that your blood pressure drops. And because your blood pressure drops, because now all the focus and the concentration has to be around the stomach where all the action is. So because of that, you feel lightheaded a little and you think that you're sleepy, while realistically your blood pressure has dropped a little. So you feel sleepy and you want to go straight to bed. And at the same time, there are certain things, if for example too much sugar goes into the blood, then insulin comes into the blood. And then insulin causes other chemicals to come, and these other chemicals give you this feeling of fatigue and being sleepy. Doctors will tell you that it takes 22 minutes for your brain to realize how much food is in your stomach. You've all heard this, right? And for this reason, if you're eating and then you go to the phone and you stay on the phone for a few minutes, for 10, 15 minutes, and you come back, you don't feel like eating anymore, you feel full. A lot of you have experienced this, right? Why is it that you feel full? Because now your brain has caught up with how much is in your stomach. And now you feel that you're full. So one of the keys is to eat slowly. Because when we eat quickly, if I get so full, and then after eating quickly and eating so much, then I start to realize I'm full. By the time the brain realizes how much is in the stomach, you're only this far away from exploding. So, they tell you eat slowly. Scholars used to say eat slowly. The Prophet ﷺ would eat slowly. And now there is an invention or a contraption. You put something in your mouth. I forgot what the name of it is. You put something in your mouth and it can affect your speech slightly. And then they say you can learn to speak with it. But you only put it in your mouth at the time of eating. And it only allows you to chew at a certain speed and to eat so much. So what is this when I need now to put something in my mouth to control how much I eat? And do I not have enough control where I can just stop myself from eating too much? Why do I need to put a contraption in my mouth to stop or to limit my eating? Why do I need to staple my stomach? Usually it's the animals who are the ones who don't have control. And the difference between human beings and animals, among the differences is that human beings have self-control. Animals have no control. Ever see an animal that was hungry and then saw food and said, I'll wait till later? They eat immediately. They're impulsive like that. And sadly, sometimes in school they teach us that the only difference between humans and animals, they tell you that man is an animal, but the only difference is the opposable thumb. We have an opposable thumb, and that's the difference between us and them. We can use tools in them. That's a physical difference. The real difference is that we have control. We can control ourselves. So we look how the Prophet ﷺ, after breaking his fast, he would eat just a few dates before going to the masjid for salah. So he'd go to the masjid with just a few dates and some water in his stomach, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the scholars also comment on the dates that when you eat a few dates, it fills you more than the physical space that 2 dates take up. So you go to the salah and you're not absolutely famished, and at the same time you are not stuffed. So the problem is we go to the salah and we're so stuffed with food. And I was in a masjid one time and someone who was so stuffed that he was moving very carefully and very slowly, and at the same time when he still made his sujood, all the food exited. So one of the things, we don't want to eat too much at the time of iftar. We said that when the stomach is hungry, the other parts are full. And when the stomach is full, the other parts become hungry. But people, after iftar, they become so full, other parts become hungry. And that's why if you compare the deeds, the actions of the people during the night of Ramadan, you see that they sin typically more during the night than they do during the day. Why? Because the stomach is full. Now you're looking for other activity and other excitement and other action. One of the benefits that we lose if we eat too much is we also lose this ability to control our desire and to control our self, our nafs. Because when your nafs, or yourself, is hungry, it stays away from the bad deeds. It has no power and no strength for desires. And this is the essence of fasting, is that it weakens the desires. And the desires are an avenue that the shaitan leads people with to evil deeds. So we are supposed to realistically eat the same way that we eat before Ramadan, or at least in the same capacity. But people insist to fill to the max, and in that way they lose the lessons of self-control and persistence, or self-control that they're supposed to learn during the month of Ramadan. So we mentioned that hunger makes us feel pity, and it makes the rich feel pity for the poor, and it makes them feel also this equality. So one of the early Muslims was asked, why was fasting legislated? And he said, so that the rich can feel the hunger and not forget the poor. But brothers and sisters, we need to act on this. It can't just be that we know this is one of the reasons and that's it, and we don't act on it. We find of the early Muslims, Abdullah ibn Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhuma, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and many others, they would give their food at the time of iftar to a poor person. If a poor person comes near their house, they give the food that they had for iftar What does this mean? It's not like they have a fridge where there's more food that's prepared. Because of the lack of fridges, people typically, they prepared enough food for that one meal, because the rest couldn't go in the freezer. So some of the early Muslims would give the food that's prepared in front of them, this is what they're going to eat for iftar, and they would give it to the poor and stay the night hungry. Because the question is, how do we feel hungry, how do we feel the hunger of the poor when we stuff ourselves at night? So it's just a temporary starvation, and then we make up for it when it's time for Maghrib. We see how the Sahaba used to feel the pain of others. Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu, at the time of iftar, they brought him two kinds of food. This is Abdurrahman ibn Auf, the companion radiallahu anhu. It's time for iftar, they put two kinds of food in front of him, he begins to cry. So they asked him, why are you crying?